Hello and welcome to my review of the Chaos Space Marines Havocs. Now this box set will cost you £32.50, which is £4 more than the current Space Marine Devastator box set. Is it really worth that extra £4? In my opinion, it is. You get a lot more detail, you get a fair few spare parts, you get bigger bases, you get cooler looking models, right? And you do get better rules too. A couple of controversial points about this set, similar to the Chaos Space Marine box set, is of course the price. The inclusion of only one Reaper Chaincannon, this weapon here on the right, and their new and improved rules. It's nice that they get new and improved rules. They do get a bit of a handicap in that you can only have 5 of them. They're on these big Terminator bases, so that kind of makes sense. If you had 10 of them, they'd take a lot of space on a hill or on a building or something like that. And finally, their rules, both with their toughness now being 5, which is not typically a standard characteristic of an infantry unit. Typically, you'd attribute that characteristic to an infantry unit on a bike or some kind of steed to increase their toughness. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the models themselves up close and personal. This is my loadout. This is what I've created. As you can see, 2 lascannon Havocs, 1 heavy bolter, just because it looks so damn cool, the aspiring champion, and clearly I'm going to go for the Reaper Chaincannon. This is the box they come in. It shows you a few options there. I like the power more, which clearly I fell in love with. And you can have the flamer, the plasma gun, or the melter gun. And instead of the power more, you can have the chainsword on the front if you wish. The set includes those weapons for the aspiring champion, 2 autocannons, 2 missile launchers, 2 heavy bolters, 2 lascannons, and 1 chain cannon. So it does include 2 of every weapon type, except for the chain cannon, which only has 1. Now, contrary to the instruction guide, which I found was a little bit misleading in a way, because it kind of shows, you know, when I went through it for the first look and unboxing, it kind of shows, oh, choose the variant you wish to build. You can have a missile launcher or a lascannon with this torso. That's a load of twaddle. I have specifically gone to the lascannon Havocs and put the autocannon on, and that works absolutely fine. You'll have no issues whatsoever. And I thought that that was a bit misleading of the instruction guide. I don't know whether that's on purpose to get people to buy more of the sets, like the fact that it's only got 1 Reaper Chaincannon and they've made that weapon amazing. But if it is, that's quite underhand. But it's so underhand, I don't think it's intentional, if you get where I'm coming from. You can have 2 heavy bolters, and then if you bought another one of these sets, you could have the 2 heavy bolters on the lascannon torsos. The heavy weapons are not specific to the torsos. I can't reiterate that point. They are specific to the arms and the backpacks, and the head's specific to the backpacks, but typically you can put any kind of rounds you want on these power plants, but the heads will go to those power plants themselves because of the cabling, which is fine. You can snip the cabling off. With a fair bit of plastic glue, you can actually get away with having different heads. I don't like the fact that the heads are completely attached to the power plants. I don't like that. I mean, you know, from an aesthetic point of view, if you're having, oh, this is the heavy bolter Havoc, and that's the heavy bolter helmet, that's fine. But say I wanted his head to be looking the way he's not pointing that heavy bolter, like over here, I just wouldn't be able to do it without it looking dodgy with the cabling. So that's another little bad point. Let me go through all of the models themselves. As always, I like to have a look at the aspiring champion or sergeant first of all. This sergeant is, it's got a fair amount of detail. I'll zoom in and get some detail on him. He's got a bit of a scenic base going on. He's got these stones that he's perched upon. I do think it's a bit sad that the guy in charge of these like Devastator Space Marines doesn't get to have a heavy weapon himself, unlike say the Dark Reapers for the Eldari, which typically do have the Dark Reaper launcher, actually have a better version of the heavy weapon that the rest of the unit are carrying. I always found that a bit strange for Space Marine Devastators and now these Havocs, that the Devastator Space Marine has like a chainsword and a bolt pistol, and then he's just, you know, milling around the guys with missile launchers and laser cannons, you know. Anyway, this guy does pack a punch. Yes, these Havocs will be staying at the back, although I do have some freedom to move them closer to the enemy. But if they do get charged or whatever, at least he's got this plasma gun, not a plasma pistol, he is one-handing that plasma gun, which is immense, and he's got this power maul, which is I think only 4 points as opposed to like the 10 for a power fist, or you know, it's still more obviously than the chainsword, which is free. Chainsword you get an extra attack, but at least the power maul bumps his strength up and gives him armor penetration -2, so a little bit of a nasty shock of any units that want to come and assault these you know, long range Chaos Space Marines. Anyway, really nice plasma gun. Like I say, you get the plasma gun, the melter gun, and the flamer in with the set, and you either get the power maul or the chainsword. I'll go through all the spare weapons after I've looked at these models in detail. Then my favourite model in the set by far is the Reaper Chaincannon Havoc. Absolutely cool, incredible. If you do get another set, or you do get the other Reaper Chaincannon, he's going to look exactly the same. You can change the torso, but the head will only go, but the head will go with the power plant, which then, but at least you can change the ammo feed to the specific power plant. Maybe it was just me, but the ammunition, I had a bit of a problem gluing them all in there properly. Really bit of a tricky thing for me. No matter what I did, I just couldn't get them to sit properly, so bear that in mind if you have some issues. It's good that it's on the back, but I did have some issues with that, but the rest of him went together quite well. Awesome looking weapon, really nice and long, and yeah, fantastic mini, especially on these big Terminator bases, that you really get a sense of awe with these heavy weapons on the big bases. Just compared to like a, you know, standard Space Marine from the standard set. We'll compare them in a moment too, but as you can see, much more of a presence there. Then I've chosen 2 lascannon Havocs. I'm not a big fan of the the on the shoulder heavy weapons. Also not a fan where you get the heavy weapons that are attached by cabling. I don't like the gap there. There is actually supposed to be a gap. That's the way you sort of glue his arm onto his torso. I don't like that big gap. It looks a bit silly. And again, like I said, I don't like the cabling that goes to them. It's very old school. Much rather have the power packs to generate the lascannon rounds, or you know, the actual missiles being loaded in a different way. Not only do they get you to glue the head to the power plant, also you glue the head to the weapon. Look, there's a cable there that you glue to the weapon as well, and then the weapon glues to the power plant. Lots of kind of multi-assembly, multi-contact points there on these models. I'm not a huge fan of the pose, just because of that gap, and also the lascannon is on a bit of a wonk rather than completely stable. This lascannon is better, but he's in an odd looking pose. He's kind of got his foot forward rather than about to brace himself to take a shot. I don't think there's much recoil from these laser weapons anyway, if anything. And again, you've got the same thing going on here, with the head glued to the power plant, and then another cable glued to the weapon itself. I like this lascannon Havoc with his fingers on the lascannon, just adjusting it slightly, but this guy with his clenched fist, I'm not a huge fan at all. Looks a bit odd. I still would have rather him holding the lascannon or doing something else rather than just clenching his fist, but there we go. So that's that lascannon Havoc. And then finally, just for the rule of cool, I thought I'd introduce a heavy bolter Havoc. Now, I don't play many games, so, you know, yeah, of course, it's always going to be better to have them specific, to have 4 lascannons or 4 heavy bolters or 4 Reaper Chaincannons if you can afford it. But I go for rule of cool mostly with all my miniatures, as you can tell from the way I put them together. I couldn't resist with this heavy bolter. I love the rounds that cleanly go all the way into the back of the power plant. This is one of my favourite models of the kit. I like these. I like the heavy bolter. This model just portrays a sense of weight to that weapon, and he's about to hose something down with it. Absolutely fantastic. So this and the chain cannon, clearly my favourites. So there you go. That's all the models. What I'll do now is just show you all the spare parts. So my oh my, do you get a treasure trove of spare parts. I didn't use the missile launchers because I thought they looked even more archaic than the over the shoulder lascannons, but these are the 2 missile launchers you get. They have slight differences. There's some iconography on this one. This guy is actually firing one, and this guy hasn't got his hand or fingers on the firing mechanism yet. But there you go, that's the missile launchers. There you get the 2 autocannons. In my opinion, they don't look as cool as the one from the normal set. Now, I have glued the drum magazine on that one, just to show you. But yeah, compared to this one, for some reason, I just find this one cooler. But they are exactly the same size, basically, as the ones that you get in the normal Chaos Space Marine set. So they're the autocannons, and obviously you get all the backpacks and things with them. You get 2 servo arms, which I thought was a bit strange, but you get 2 servo arms for the missile launcher power plants. Clearly they're to load the missiles into the launcher automatically, I would have thought. This is the other heavy bolter. Compared to the other one, again, subtle differences. Same ejection port face though, which is a bit odd, and would have been nice to have a different one. And it's the same on the autocannon too. That's the other backpack. That's the other ammo feed for the heavy bolter. You've got the melter gun and the flamer. I'm quite far away, I apologise. So melter gun and flamer, they're the old school versions. You've got this hand, which you could use on another Chaos Space Marine, but that's just holding the missile launcher. You got this hand, which goes onto the autocannon grip. More power plants and ammo feeds. If you use those 5 heads, you're going to get 4 heads spare, but it's important to note that they do correspond to those power plants, to the specific power plants. So you've got this one with the targeting optics. You've got another one with the targeting optics, well actually 2 targeting optics, and then this one without any. You've got the Aspiring Champion with the top knot, which I could have gone for, and I was thinking of it because there are a couple of Chaos Space Marines that I don't have any helmets on. And then this guy's got some optics too, quite futuristic optics, those ones. And then here are some other power plant backs, which obviously correspond with the different helmets. There's the chainsword, just one chainsword in there. This is actually holding a missile rather than the grip, so that's for the missile launcher. This is a grip though for the autocannon, I think. This is an arm and hand that goes on the heavy bolter. These are the missile launcher barrels, barrel ends, autocannon drum magazine, another autocannon ammo hopper, and then another power plant sort of back. So they're all the spare parts. Now what I'll do is I'll just compare them to normal Chaos Space Marines. So I've got a heavy bolter Chaos Space Marine here, which although taller because he's got the ammo, you know, the magazine on the back, definitely the Havoc has got more of a presence. I don't know about you, but he looks, if I just zoom in again, I'm getting so far away, the Havoc looks bigger, not just because he's on the bigger base, but he's got the bigger feet. No, he's got the bigger toes, wider legs it looks like. The heavy bolter is a little bit beefier, like longer, I want to say, and it's got this this extra bit on the front. And all of these Havocs have these kind of gorgets as well. They just look a bit thicker and a bit more, well, do I need to say it, tougher. But there you go. Interesting, very interesting. But as you can see, yeah, definitely more of a presence with this Havoc than that one. I haven't got the autocannon guy, but if we just were to compare the autocannon guy with the Reaper Chaincannon, it's just no competition, is it? I mean, look at the extra sort of gorget and armour there on the Havoc. More protection. And these extra plates, which are on each of the thighs. Overlapping plates kind of thing. Plates of armour over armour. Not much more on the arms and wrists though. And the shoulder pauldrons look the same. But there you go. That's sort of my take on it compared to normal Chaos Space Marines. And I suppose I could compare them to the Greater Possessed, which are on the same basis. Yeah, Greater Possessed are bigger. And they have more presence, but not by a huge amount now. You know, they definitely go very, very well together. Everybody wants me to compare things to the Obliterators, so here we go. The Reaper Chaincannon versus, yeah, the Reaper Chaincannon is much bigger on the Havoc than the Obliterator. But there you go. They've got a presence even with these Obliterators. You know, they work quite well with them. And of course, let's compare them to a Baden. There's a Baden surrounded by a load of Havocs. Works quite well, I think. You know, very decent looking. Having them all there. Okay, so let's compare them to a couple of Imperial units that you are more familiar with. So a normal Space Marine looks absolutely tiny next to these guys, even on his sort of slightly bigger base. He's dwarfed. Maybe I need to get a heavy bolter Space Marine from somewhere, but even compared to the Intercessor, well, if we do the Intercessor next to the Aspiring Champion, look at that. Aspiring Champion. I know the Aspiring Champion's on that rock, I understand that, but in that pose, he looks the same size, right? Huge. He looks the same. He looks larger. Crazy. I mean the Reaper Chaincannon guy. Very, very similar there. But yeah, the heavy bolter guy looks a bit smaller. So interesting. Okay, but that's how they stack up near Intercessors, at least. Intercessors look almost the same height next to these Havoc Chaos Space Marines. This is my part of the review where I will go through all of the rules for the Chaos Space Marine Havocs. You'll find them in your brand new 8th edition codex, or you'll find some of their rules in the instruction guide that you get with them. You'll also find their rules in the Vigilus Ablaze campaign book. It's important that I say you find some of their rules in their instruction guide because that data sheet just explains that they're all equipped with a heavy bolter or a lascannon, and as such only describe the profiles for those types of weapons. In the codex it's the same story, but of course all the weapon profiles are at the in the rear of the book. They are a heavy support choice, clearly, and they're like a Devastator squad. They're a power points cost of a 7 and a points cost of 14 per model. And then weaponry wise, well, I've equipped mine with 2 lascannons, which is quite costly, heavy bolter and a Reaper Chaincannon. Now the lascannons are 25 points each, so that's 50 points just in that weapon squad. The heavy bolter is only 10 points and the Reaper Chaincannon is 20 points. So the Reaper Chaincannon is 5 points cheaper than the lascannons. Obviously the Aspiring Champion is equipped with that plasma gun, which will cost you 11 points, and the Power Maul, which will only cost you 4 points. And I think that's quite good going for that squad. I make that 165 points, which isn't too bad. Considering in game terms at least, you've got, you know, 2 solid anti-tank choices and solid either anti-armour or anti-infantry choices in the squad. Yes, with squads like these, it's always best to be role specific and have them either anti-tank or anti-infantry. You could just do more with them. However, I also think if you've got another set and equip them with these, then you're splitting your anti-armour into 2 squads, and you're not putting all of your eggs in one basket. That's one way I'd look at it too. So what do you get for all these points? Well, the Havocs themselves have a movement of 6 inches. It's pretty decent considering that they're lugging around heavy weapons. Weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, toughness 5, 1 wound, 1 attack, leadership 7 and a save of 3+. The aspiring champion has exactly the same stat line but has 2 attacks and a leadership of 8. Quite straightforward there, and their stat line is actually the same as normal Chaos Space Marines except for that toughness. So the unit contains 1 aspiring champion and 4 Havocs. The aspiring champion is armed with a flamer, chainsword, frag grenades and crack grenades. Each Havoc is armed with a heavy bolter or lascannon and frag grenades and crack grenades. So I'll go through the weapon profiles that mine are equipped with. So the 2 lascannons there then, range of 48 inches, heavy 1, strength 9, AP -3 and a damage of D6. The heavy bolter there is 36 inches, heavy 3, strength 5, AP -1 and a damage of 1. The frag grenades are 6 inch, grenade D6, strength 3, AP 0 and damage 1. But the crack grenades are 6 inch, grenade 1, strength 6, AP -1 and a damage of D3. So the Reaper Chaincannon, why is it so good? Well, it's a 24-inch range weapon, so it's the shortest range weapon out of these ones, except for the plasma gun, which is the same, I suppose. It has heavy 8 shots, that's horrific, strength 5, AP -1 and a damage of 1. So it's the same stat line as the heavy bolter, but for a reduction of 12-inch range, you're getting an additional 5 shots, which is pretty good. It's a good trade-off, especially when you're hitting on 3+. And I would pick 2 of these over 2 heavy bolters. I can see why people would do that. The icing on the cake is the fact that these guys can move and still shoot heavy weapons. Let's go through the war gear options. Any Havoc may replace their heavy bolter or lascannon with 1 item from the heavy weapons list. The aspiring champion may replace his flamer with 1 item from the champion equipment or special weapons list. And the aspiring champion may replace his chainsword with 1 item from the champion equipment list. Abilities: Death to the False Emperor. So that might not be too handy considering these are long range support unit, but still, if they do get in close combat, then you could use it. And then stabilization talons. This unit can move and fire heavy weapons without suffering the penalty to their hit rolls. Now that's immense. The toughness 5 was immense, but the fact that they can move and fire means that you can hide them anywhere on the battlefield first turn and not have any penalty. They can just pop out of cover or wherever and then fire those heavy weapons. And then next turn, guess what? They can move back into cover, and if they still have line of sight in cover, they can fire again. So that's immense that you can really take advantage of those cover saves, of line of sight of your enemy, and even to close the range. I mean, 6-inch movement speed is the same movement speed as your normal Chaos Space Marines and normal, you know, they're faster than Plague Marines obviously, but you know, with a 6-inch movement speed, it means that although that Reaper Chaincannon is 24 inches, it does have an effective range of 30. So if your opponent is 42 inches away in 3 turns, you're gonna you know, close that distance. You could have them in a Rhino and get them to pop out. That's another option. The key words is Chaos, Mark of Chaos, Heretic Astartes, Legion, Infantry and Havocs. So there you go, that's all the rules. Overall, I think they're a very, very solid choice. Yeah, they're let down by the price. You know, £32.50 is quite pricey now, but they've got a lot of detail, a lot of spare parts and weapon options, which you can technically use on your normal Chaos Space Marines to add more heavy weapons to your existing squads. A bit like what you can do with the Devastator heavy weapon spare parts. So that's nice, but the omission of having 2 Reaper Chaincannons is a bit poor and a bit short-sighted in my opinion. I definitely think that they should have had at least 2 in there. even if it meant only providing one heavy bolter or one missile launcher. I think 2 lascannons is a must, but now with these new Reaper Chaincannons, 2 Reaper Chaincannons is a must too. One thing I will also say is you can get the rotor cannons from Forge World for about £13.50 for 5 of them. They have been coming in and out of stock throughout the last few weeks, because obviously people have caught up to this and want more competitive Havocs, which is fine. But if you want to do that, go on Forge World and have a look, and they might be in stock, and at which case you've got 5 of them. You just got to find a way of sort of converting them and putting them on these models. What I will say is the ammunition feeds come straight, and you just need to warm them up with a hairdryer and bend them into place and then super glue them, so they are a bit fiddly, but it is possible as an alternative to buying multiple sets of these boxes. But if you're just going to buy one set, this is a very decent set out of the releases, and one of the best. I will do a complete review of all of the new Chaos Space Marine releases at the end of their release schedule. I think they're almost finished. We've just got the Lord Discordant this weekend, and then the weekend after we've got the Master of Executions and the Dark Apostle. So in about 3 weeks we'll have finished that, and I'll be able to do the review of all the new units. I'm going to try and get the Terminators, and I'm going to try and get the Noctilith Crown to do reviews on, so stay tuned to the channel for those, and thank you for your patience. What do you guys think of the Havocs, both the models and the new rules? Please do put it in the comments below. I'm always interested to read what you guys have to say. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. Death to the False Emperor.